You know what question I'm tired of hearing? So when are you having kids? I'm 40 years old and I made my choice a long time ago. I chose my career. I chose my freedom. I chose myself. And honestly, I don't regret it. Well, most days I don't. But let me tell you the whole story because it's more complicated than a simple yes or no. It's about the pressure, the judgment, the relationships I lost, and the life I gained. So grab your coffee, settle in, because this is going to take a while. I grew up in a typical suburban household in Ohio. My mom was a stay-at-home mother to 3 kids, me and my 2 younger brothers, Jake and Ryan. My dad worked in insurance, came home at 6 every evening, and we had dinner together as a family. It was normal, expected. The American dream, right? When I was a little girl, probably around 7 or 8, I remember playing with dolls in my room. My mom would smile and say things like, "You're going to be such a good mother someday, Sophia." And I'd nod because that's what little girls did. We played house. We pretended to be mommies. It was just assumed. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Not every little girl dreams of that. Some of us were also building Lego cities, reading adventure books, and imagining ourselves as explorers, scientists, or business leaders. I had a whole imaginary company I ran from my treehouse. I'd make my brothers be my employees, and I'd create elaborate business plans on notebook paper. My dad thought it was adorable. My mom seemed less enthusiastic. "That's nice, sweetheart," she'd say, "but don't forget to also think about your future family." I was 9. Throughout my teenage years, the assumption continued. In high school, my guidance counselor asked me what I wanted to study in college. I said business management. She smiled and said, "That's wonderful. You'll be able to manage your household budget so well when you're married." I remember sitting there, 17 years old, thinking, is that really what this is all about? Managing a household budget. Don't get me wrong, I respect homemakers completely. My mother worked incredibly hard. But why was that the only lens through which my ambitions were viewed? Why couldn't I just want to manage an actual business? When I went to college at Michigan State, I was finally surrounded by people with different perspectives. My roommate, Amanda, was pre-med. She wanted to be a surgeon. We'd stay up late talking about our futures, and she was the first person who never assumed I'd get married and have kids right after graduation. "What do you want, Sophia?" she asked me one night during sophomore year. "Like really want, not what your family expects, not what society expects. What do you want?" I thought about it for a long time, and then I said something I'd never said out loud before. I want to build something, a career, a company maybe. I want to travel. I want to make decisions that affect thousands of people. I want to matter in a big way. She nodded. "Then do it. You don't need permission." But here's what I learned. You might not need permission, but you definitely need to defend your choices. Over and over again. After college, I moved to Chicago. I got a job at a marketing firm, starting as a junior account manager. The work was demanding, long hours, tight deadlines, competitive environment. I loved it. I thrived in that pressure cooker. When I was 26, I met David at a networking event. He was handsome, funny, worked in finance, and we just clicked. We started dating, and for the first year, everything was perfect. We'd go to museums on Sundays, try new restaurants, talk about our career goals. He wanted to make partner at his firm. I wanted to become a director. Then one evening, we were at his apartment, and a commercial came on TV, one of those sappy diaper commercials with a gurgling baby. David smiled and said, "I can't wait to have a couple of those someday." My stomach dropped. "Yeah," I said carefully, "you think about that a lot." "Of course," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I mean, not now obviously, but in a few years, once we're both more established. I'm thinking 2 kids, maybe 3. What about you?" I took a deep breath. We'd been together for a year, and somehow we'd never had this conversation directly. We'd danced around it, made vague future plans, but never confronted it head-on. "David, I don't think I want kids." The silence that followed was deafening. He actually picked up the remote and muted the TV. "What do you mean you don't think you want kids?" "I mean, I've never felt that pull, that desire. I want to focus on my career. I want to travel. I like our life the way it is, the freedom, the spontaneity. Adding children to that equation doesn't appeal to me. He looked confused, like I was speaking a foreign language. But everyone wants kids eventually. You're 26. You'll change your mind. Those words, you'll change your mind. I would hear them so many times over the years that they'd become like nails on a chalkboard. I don't think I will, I said quietly. We talked or argued, really, for hours that night. He couldn't understand why I wouldn't want to be a mother. It's the most natural thing in the world, he kept saying. It's what we're meant to do. Who says what we're meant to do? I challenged. Why can't I be meant to do something else? We stayed together for another 6 months, both of us hoping the other would change their mind. Spoiler alert, neither of us did. The breakup was painful. He told me I was selfish. He told me I'd regret it. He told me I'd end up alone and bitter. I remember crying in Amanda's apartment after we broke up. She'd moved to Chicago too, was in her residency at Northwestern. Am I selfish? I asked her through tears. For knowing what you want and being honest about it, she said. No, that's the opposite of selfish. Selfish would be having kids you don't want and resenting them for it. You're doing everyone a favor by being clear. But it didn't feel like a favor. It felt like I was broken somehow. Different, wrong. My late 20s and early 30s were a whirlwind. I threw myself into work with everything I had. I got promoted to account director at 28. I switched companies at 30 for a senior director role with a 20% salary increase. I traveled to New York, Los Angeles, London, Singapore. I led teams, pitched to major clients, closed deals worth millions. And I loved every minute of it. But with each promotion, each success, came another wave of questions. My mother would call after I shared good news about work and say, "That's wonderful, honey, but don't let your career make you forget about starting a family. Your eggs don't last forever, you know." My eggs, as if they were milk with an expiration date. My father was more subtle, but the message was the same. "Your brothers are giving us grandchildren," he'd mention casually. "Jake and Ryan are doing well in that department." Doing well in that department. Like procreation was a performance review. At work, I faced different but equally frustrating assumptions. When I was 32, I was interviewing for a VP position. The male interviewer, I'll call him Richard, asked me during our conversation, "How do you plan to balance the demands of this role with family obligations?" He didn't ask any of the male candidates that question. I found out later. I smiled tightly and said, "I don't have any family obligations that would interfere with the role." He nodded, looking relieved. But then he said, "Well, for now. But what about in a few years when you decide to start a family?" "I've decided not to have children," I said clearly. His eyebrows shot up. "Oh, well, okay then." I got the job, but I always wondered if my answer was what sealed it, and whether that was even legal to consider. My friends from college started getting married and having bobbies. Facebook became a minefield of pregnancy announcements and baby photos. Every time I scrolled, there was another gender reveal, another first birthday, another blessed mama caption. And the baby showers. Oh, the baby showers. I went to so many in my early 30s. I'd sit there, eating tiny sandwiches and playing games about guessing the baby food flavor, and I'd feel like an alien. Everyone would be cooing over tiny onesies and sharing their birth stories, and I'd be thinking about the presentation I had to give on Monday or the client dinner I was planning. One of my closest friends from college, Jessica, had her first baby when we were both 31. At her shower, someone made a joke about me being next. Everyone laughed and looked at me expectantly. "Actually, I'm not planning to have kids," I said, trying to keep my tone light. The room went quiet. Then someone I don't even remember who said, "Oh, you say that now. Wait until you hold Jessica's baby. You'll change your mind." When Jessica had her daughter, Emma, she did let me hold her at the hospital. Everyone watched me, smiling, waiting for that magical moment when maternal instinct would supposedly kick in. I looked at the baby. She was cute, sure, tiny and pink and smelling like that specific baby smell, and I felt nothing special. I mean, I was happy for Jessica, but I didn't feel an overwhelming urge to have one of my own. I just felt worried I might drop her. Isn't she perfect? Jessica asked, glowing despite her exhaustion. She's beautiful, I said honestly. You're going to be an amazing mom. I handed Emma back after a few minutes. Jessica looked disappointed, like I'd failed some test. Over the next few years, Jessica and I drifted apart. She was consumed with motherhood, sleepless nights, diaper changes, toddler tantrums. I was consumed with work, board meetings, strategy sessions, international expansion plans. We tried to meet for coffee occasionally, but she'd always have to cut it short because of nap time or daycare pickup, and I could see in her eyes that she thought my concerns about quarterly projections were trivial compared to her concerns about Emma's development. Maybe we were both right. Maybe our concerns were just different, not better or worse, just different. When I was 35, I met Michael. He was different from anyone I'd dated before. He was an architect, creative and thoughtful. We met at a gallery opening. Mutual friends introduced us. He actually asked me about my work and seemed genuinely interested in my answers. He listened, really listened. We started dating, and for the first time in years, I felt understood. Michael had been married before in his 20s, and it had ended badly. He was wary of traditional expectations, questioning of societal norms. He'd traveled extensively, lived in 4 different countries, spoke 3 languages. On our 3rd date, we had the kids' conversation. I'd learned my lesson with David, better to address it early. I should tell you, I said over dim sum in Chinatown. I don't want children, I never have. If that's a deal breaker for you, I'd rather know now. He set down his chopsticks and looked at me seriously. I appreciate you being upfront. Honestly, I'm not sure I want them either. I've never felt that conventional pull toward family life. I like my freedom. I like being able to take a project in Barcelona or Tokyo without worrying about school districts. I felt this wave of relief wash over me. Finally, someone who got it. We were together for 3 years, 3 wonderful, exciting years. We traveled to Iceland, Peru, Japan. We'd work hard all week and then have these adventurous weekends. We could decide on a Thursday to fly to New York for a Broadway show that weekend. We could stay up until 3 in the morning talking about architecture and marketing theory and philosophy and everything in between. We talked about getting married. We looked at apartments together. We made plans. And then, when I was 38, something shifted in Michael. It started small. He'd linger a little longer when we saw kids at restaurants. He'd mention his brother's children more often. Then one night, he said it. I think I might want kids after all. My heart sank. What changed? I don't know, he said, and he looked genuinely confused. I thought I didn't want them, I was so sure. But lately, I've been thinking about legacy, about what I'm leaving behind. My buildings will stand for decades, maybe, but what about after that? What about something that carries forward who I am? Your work carries forward who you are, I said. Your designs, your creativity. It's not the same, he said quietly. We tried to make it work. God, we tried. We went to couples therapy. We had long, painful conversations. The therapist asked me if I might be willing to reconsider. I'm 38, I said. I've had 20 years to reconsider. This isn't a phase. This isn't something I'm confused about. I know myself. I don't want to be a mother. The therapist turned to Michael. And you, how strongly do you feel about this? I don't know, he said, and I could hear the agony in his voice. I love Sophia. I love our life, but I can't shake this feeling that I'll regret it if I don't at least try to be a father. We broke up 3 months later. It was mutual, sort of. We both knew we couldn't give each other what we needed. On our last night together, we sat on his couch, our couch, really, since we'd picked it out together, and cried. I wish I'd never changed my mind, he said. I wish I could go back to being the person who didn't want this. I wish I could give you what you want, I said. But I can't, and I won't resent you for wanting it. I could never resent you for knowing yourself, he said. But here's the thing about breakups like that. Even when they're amicable, even when nobody's the villain, they still hurt like hell. Because you didn't fall out of love. You just wanted different things. And there's no compromise on kids. You can't have half a child. After Michael, I took a break from dating. I was 38, almost 39, and I was tired. Tired of defending my choice. Tired of hoping I'd find someone who truly shared my vision for life. Tired of being asked when I'd change my mind. My 40th birthday was complicated. My company threw me a surprise party at the office. My team gave me a beautiful watch engraved with "Fearless Leader." My parents called. My brothers called. My few remaining child-free friends took me out for an incredible dinner. But that night, alone in my apartment, I looked around at my life. I had a corner office. I had a 6-figure salary. I had a passport full of stamps. I had freedom and autonomy and success. I also had an empty apartment, no one to share my day with, no one waiting for me at home. I'm not going to lie to you, I had a moment, maybe more than a moment. I had a solid week of questioning everything. I watched my brothers with their kids at Thanksgiving that year. Jake had 2 daughters, 7 and 4. Ryan had a son who was 6. I watched them light up when their kids ran to them. I watched the pride in their eyes at the kindergarten art projects stuck to their fridges. My mother pulled me aside while we were doing dishes. "It's not too late, you know," she said gently. "Women have bobbies into their 40s now, with IVF and everything." "Mom," I said, "I don't want to." "But don't you want someone to love you unconditionally? Someone to take care of you when you're old?" I put down the dish I was drying. "Mom, having a child so they'll take care of you when you're old is a terrible reason to have a child. That's not guaranteed. That's not their job. And as for unconditional love, I have people who love me. Just because I didn't give birth to them doesn't make that love less valuable." She sighed. "I just worry about you being alone." "Being alone and being lonely are 2 different things," I said. "And honestly, some of the loneliest people I know are in marriages or have kids. Connection isn't guaranteed by biology." But I'd be lying if I said her words didn't burrow into my brain. What about when I'm old? What about holidays? What about legacy? I started noticing things I'd ignored before. At restaurants, I'd see families, parents with grown children, grandparents with grandkids, all laughing together. I'd wonder what my family gatherings would look like in 30 years. Would it just be me, alone at a table? A friend from work, Patricia, had adult children. We'd gone out for drinks one evening, and she showed me photos of her daughter's graduation from medical school. "This is what it's all about," she said, her eyes actually tearing up. "Watching them become these incredible people, knowing you had a part in that." I felt something twist in my chest. Envy, regret, I couldn't tell. "Do you ever wish you'd focused more on your career?" I asked her. "You took 10 years off when your kids were young. Do you regret that?" She thought about it. "Sometimes I wonder what I might have achieved. I was on track to be a partner before I had kids. But honestly, Sophia, no, I don't regret it. My kids are my proudest accomplishment." I nodded, but I remember thinking, why can't my work be my proudest accomplishment? Why is that not enough? I went through a phase where I researched adoption. Late-night Google spirals about international adoption, foster care, older child adoption. I made it as far as requesting information packets. They sat on my kitchen counter for 2 weeks. Every time I looked at them, I felt this weight in my stomach. Not excitement, not anticipation, just dread. Finally, I threw them away. Because I realized something crucial. I was considering this out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of regret, fear of being wrong. But fear is a terrible reason to become a parent. If I couldn't approach motherhood with genuine desire, with full commitment, with excitement instead of dread, then I had no business doing it. A child deserves better than a mother who chose them as a backup plan against loneliness. I'm 40 now. It's been 2 years since that crisis period, and I've come to a place of peace, most of the time. Here's what I've learned. There is no one right way to live a life. There is no one path to fulfillment. And the sooner we all accept that, the better off we'll be. I'm not going to tell you I never have doubts. I do. Sometimes I see a mother and daughter shopping together, clearly best friends, and I wonder what I'm missing. Sometimes I see the unconditional joy on a parent's face at a school play, and I feel a small pang. But then I think about my life, really think about it. I'm a senior vice president now. I oversee marketing strategy for a global company. Last year, I led a campaign that reached over 50 million people and changed how an entire industry thinks about sustainability. I've mentored dozens of young professionals, many of them women, helping them navigate their careers and find their voices. Is that not a legacy? Is that not valuable? I have deep friendships, people I've known for decades, people who show up when I need them. I have my friend Amanda, now a cardiothoracic surgeon, saving actual lives. We talk every week. I have my colleague-turned-friend James, whose kids I'm the godmother to, so I'm involved in their lives, just not as a parent. I travel whenever I want. Last year, I spent 3 weeks in Vietnam, completely spontaneously. I take myself to the theater. I've taken up painting. I volunteer with a literacy program, working with adult learners. I've helped a dozen people learn to read. Tell me that's not meaningful. I'm dating again, nothing serious, but I'm open to it. And I'm clear from the first conversation I don't want children. Some men disappear immediately. That's fine. We're not compatible. Some men say they're okay with it but bring it up later, hopping I'll change my mind. Those relationships end quickly now. I don't have time to waste. And occasionally, rarely, I meet someone who genuinely shares my vision, who sees a fulfilling life without children not as settling, but as a valid, complete choice. Those are the ones worth exploring. My relationship with my mother has improved, actually. I think she's finally accepted that this is real, that I'm not changing my mind. At a recent dinner, she surprised me. "I'm proud of you, you know," she said out of nowhere. I almost dropped my fork. "What?" "I'm proud of you," she repeated. "You knew what you wanted and you went after it. You didn't let anyone pressure you into a life that wasn't yours. That takes courage." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thanks, Mom, that means a lot." "I still wish I had more grandchildren," she added with a small smile. "But I'm glad you're happy." Am I happy? Yes, most days, genuinely yes. Are there hard moments? Absolutely. When my friend Jessica sends me photos of her daughter Emma graduating from elementary school, and I realize I've missed huge chunks of Emma's life because Jessica and I exist in such different worlds now, that stings. When I'm at a company retreat and everyone's sharing photos of their kids, and I have to show pictures of my last vacation instead, I feel othered. When I think about being 70, 80, 90, who will visit me? Who will care? Those thoughts creep in sometimes late at night. But then I remember, I'm building a different kind of safety net. I'm investing in friendships. I'm investing in community. I'm investing in myself, my health, my interests, my connections. I'm setting aside money not for college funds, but for my future care, for a retirement where I can age with dignity and support. And most importantly, I'm living authentically. I'm not performing a life I think I should want. I'm living the life I actually want. Here's what I wish people understood about the choice to be child-free. It's not always because we hate kids. I don't hate kids. I think kids are great for other people. I'm a fantastic aunt to my nephews and niece. I show up for their birthdays, their games, their recitals. I send thoughtful gifts. I have meaningful relationships with them. I just don't want to be a parent. It's not because we're selfish. You know what's actually selfish? Having a child for the wrong reasons. Having a child because society expects it. Having a child because you want someone to take care of you when you're old. Having a child to save a relationship. Those are selfish reasons. Knowing yourself well enough to make an honest choice, that's self-awareness, not selfishness. It's not because we're broken or damaged. I didn't have a traumatic childhood. I don't have some deep-seated psychological issue. I've been to therapy, I'm a big believer in therapy, and multiple therapists have confirmed that not wanting children is a perfectly valid, healthy choice. Some people want to be doctors, some want to be artists, some want to be parents, some don't. We're all wired differently. It's not because we'll change our mind eventually. I'm 40. If I was going to change my mind, it would have happened by now. This infantilizing suggestion that women don't know their own minds, that we need to be patient until we mature into wanting motherhood, it's insulting. We believe men when they say they want kids at 25. Why don't we believe women when they say they don't want kids at 25, 30, 35, 40? And finally, it's not a rejection of motherhood or mothers. I have immense respect for mothers. My mother worked her ass off raising 3 kids. My friends who are mothers are doing one of the hardest jobs in the world. I'm not saying motherhood isn't valuable or meaningful. I'm saying it's not the only valuable and meaningful path. We need to stop treating motherhood as the default setting for all women. We need to stop with the invasive questions. When are you having kids? Why don't you want kids? Don't you think you'll regret it? Can you imagine asking someone, why do you want kids? Don't you think you'll regret it? Won't you miss your freedom? We'd never ask those questions because we respect the choice to become a parent. We should equally respect the choice not to. I've also learned that this choice affects more than just my personal life. In the workplace, I've encountered bias both ways. Sometimes being child-free is seen as an asset. I can work longer hours, travel more, be more dedicated. But sometimes it's seen as suspicious. What kind of woman doesn't want children? Is she cold, unfeeling, too ambitious? I've been in meetings where mothers were criticized for leaving early for school pickups. But I've also been criticized for not understanding work-life balance because I don't have kids. As if work-life balance only matters if the life part includes children. The truth is, society doesn't quite know what to do with women like me. We don't fit the narrative. We're supposed to want it all, the career and the kids. And if we choose just the career, we're either pitied or vilified. But I'm done apologizing. I'm done defending. I'm done explaining. This is my life. This is my choice. And it's a good life. So do I regret choosing my career over having children? No. Well, most days no. There are moments, fleeting moments, when I wonder. When I see something beautiful and wish I had a child to share it with. When I think about the future and wonder who'll be there. When I feel that cultural pressure that whispers I'm somehow less than, somehow incomplete. But then I remember everything I've built, everything I've experienced, everything I've contributed. And I know that my life has meaning and purpose and value, even without children. I think the real problem isn't that some women don't want kids. The real problem is that we've built a society that tells women there's only one way to be fulfilled, only one path to meaning, only one role that matters. And that's just not true. Whether you have kids or don't have kids, whether you focus on career or focus on family, or somehow manage both. As long as you're making the choice that's right for you, as long as you're living authentically and honestly, you're doing it right. I'm 40 years old. I'm child-free by choice. I have a career I'm proud of, relationships I cherish, a life I've built intentionally. And most days, that's more than enough. To anyone out there struggling with this decision, feeling the pressure, wondering if you're broken or wrong for not wanting what everyone says you should want, you're not alone. Your choice is valid. Your life can be full and meaningful and beautiful, regardless of whether there are children in it. And to those who have made different choices, who found fulfillment in parenthood, that's beautiful too. There's room for all of us. There's respect for all paths. The question isn't, should women have children? The question is, should this woman, knowing herself, her desires, her goals, her circumstances, should she have children? And only that woman can answer. I answered for myself, and I'm at peace with that answer. Most days. And you know what? Most days is pretty damn good.